Today we're talking about exercise for women as we age. Hi, I'm Jessica Ballant, a physical therapist and Pilates teacher, and I want to bring science-based knowledge, empathy, courage, support, love, and hopefully some fun to the journeys we have with our bodies. There is hope and strength in your body, and my goal is to help you find it. Hi, and welcome back to Meet Your Body. Thanks for stopping by today. We are going to be talking about such an important topic. We're talking about exercise as we age. So for context, I'm 46 years old. I can still say that for like another week or so. I have another week at 46, then I turn 47. And so this is, of course, top of mind for me. And I just work with so many of you in kind of that age range, late 40s, 50s into 60s, 70s, even 80s, working with our bodies and our changing bodies and how we exercise, what we need to do. And I will be completely honest. I became a physical therapist at the tender age of 21. And I would say for 10 years at least for 10 years, I just didn't really see any difference in exercise for different ages. Now, I will clarify that to say I absolutely understood we had different needs, right? Like I worked with people of all ages. I absolutely knew to focus on balance and specific strengthening and functional moves for women, especially. I work, with women mostly, but for everyone as we age. So it was very clear that our needs changed when it comes to staying and being functional and needing to give exercises that worked around those needs, right? So I had a clear idea about that. But I really didn't understand, or I couldn't wrap my head around this idea that maybe I needed to give different workouts for different ages. My example for this is, people talk to me a lot about, can you give a workout, like once I started doing YouTube, can you give a workout for women over 50? Can you give a workout for women over 60? And I just always thought in my head, no, because all the workouts that I have would be appropriate for any age depending on your needs, obviously, right? Not all of us can do crunches. Not all of us can do certain moves, but I didn't really think about that as an age issue. I really thought about it more as an injury or function, like meeting your body where it is issue. And there's a piece of that I retain. So there's a piece of that I will stand by, saying that I do not believe that there's any age that you hit that we would suddenly say, you know what, you can't do that move anymore. Sorry, you've aged out of it. You've aged out of that workout. I don't believe in that. And so I am very diligent about making sure that people know, hey, if a workout feels right to you and feels good, there's no reason that you can't do it depending on your age. Like none. I have seen people do amazing things, like such amazing things with their bodies throughout their entire lives, like at every age. We are all so different. So that is something that I want to say, that I would never tell you, you can't do that anymore. It's too tough at your age. I wouldn't say that. But I have finally, it takes sometimes experience for us to really wrap our heads around things. I have finally, over the past, 5-6 years, probably since I turned 40, gotten my head around this idea that there are certain things that we really do have to focus on as we age. So it isn't that there are certain things that we shouldn't or can't do. It's more that there are things that we need to make sure that we are including in our regular workouts and our regular fitness. Like we need to be doing these things. All right. So today I am talking to the women out there. This is specific for women. Would it benefit everyone? Yes. But I am going to have some things that are specific for women today and is specific for aging. And when I say aging, I mean anything on the spectrum really, but really because we're going to be talking some about hormone changes, I mean from perimenopause on. So that's kind of where we are. But I think any age group, if you were in your 20s listening to this, it would be really helpful to have this information because like I said, I'm in physical therapy and I didn't really completely understand all of the changes that we would go through. I mean, I knew it from a book standpoint. I could memorize it and say it on a test, but now I'm living it. And so it's good for all of us to understand. So if you're not quite there yet in your life, it's still really helpful information. If you're past this point, if you're in your, like I said, 70s, if you're way past the menopausal changes, this is going to be really helpful too, because the hormone piece is just one part of this. We are going to be talking about truly what happens in our bodies as we age. Okay, from a muscle and a bone and a joint standpoint, what happens as we age and what we really have to be focusing on to keep ourselves functional, all right? Because we just need it. We have to. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'm really not. I tend to come at things from such a place of nuance and understanding and compassion and empathy, and please know that. Like, every situation is very different. I absolutely do not believe in this idea of, no excuses. Everybody has the same hours in the day. I don't believe that. I believe we are all different and not everyone has the same hours in the day. If you are taking care of kids at home, you're a single mom, you're taking care of elderly parents, and you're holding down a full-time job or more than one full-time job, that is a lot. That is a lot, and I'm not discounting that. But I also want to make sure that I tell you that you need to be exercising every week. Okay. Every week we're going to talk about what that looks like. You need regular exercise in your life to stay functional, to keep doing those activities and to give yourself the best shot at a long-term life, living independently, living joyfully, doing what you want to do. Okay. And that is just the truth. And that is where I am now. That is my motivation now, right? And you've probably seen this around social media. I am not out here living for my bikini body. All right. I am past that. That ship has sailed. I am not at that place. Do I wear bikinis? Yeah, I sure do, because I spend a lot of time in Hawaii and that's what we do. I walk on the beach, but I'm not really at the point. I'm worried so much about what I look like in that bikini. I am living for a body that's going to let me hold my grandkids someday, that's going to let me get on and off the floor independently, that's going to let me keep my mind sharp and my body resilient, that's going to let me go on my trail hikes as long as I possibly can and walk the beach as long as I possibly can. I was one of the primary caretakers for my mother-in-law who had Alzheimer's for many years, and I watched her decline. I watched her go into a wheelchair and never come back out of it. And that is a big part of what keeps me motivated and keeps me moving. So that's the body that I'm living for. And that is what we are going for, women, okay? That is what we want, right? So that's why this conversation is so important. So come at this from a place of believing in yourself, from a place of saying, yes, if you've started a program, great, let's tweak it a little bit. If you haven't started a program, now is the perfect time. Now is the time. Don't worry about what you have or haven't done in the past. Now is the time. So we're going to come at this from a place of learning together, moving together, and knowing that we can do it starting today. Okay, so what happens to our bodies as we age? So we're talking physiologically, anatomically, biomechanically, all of those fancy words. We're going to talk about what actually happens to our bodies as we age. So let's address our muscles first. We lose muscle mass starting in our 30s. Okay, so starting in our 30s, we start to lose muscle mass. And I'm going to be the first to say that aging is just a trip. I am, as I mentioned, I'm almost 47 years old, and I just feel like I'm coming into an understanding of who I am, how I process the world, the confidence that I have in the world, walking through the world as myself. Like, I'm just coming into this. And I know I've talked to so many of you in your 60s and 70s who say that just keeps going up, like that just keeps improving. I look back at who I was in my 20s and even early 30s, And I didn't have an understanding of that. Like some of the decisions I made or just how I beat myself up. I look back and say, I don't want that again. And yet somehow we are at our peak physically. Physically, we were at our peak at that age. And sometimes that just makes me laugh, the irony of that, right? The irony of the fact that just now, when I'm starting to really come into myself, like with confidence and mentally and spiritually and all that, my body's saying, oh, okay, now's the time I'm going to start losing all these hormones and start to decline. But I will also say with that, I am stronger now than I ever was back then. My body is more resilient and I have a better partnership with my body than I ever did in my 20s and 30s. Absolutely. And so by developing that and keeping that moving forward, I truly believe that we can't stop the aging process, right? We can't stop it. We can't totally stop these things that are happening as we age, but we can work with them to still have the absolute best function and strength possible. So that's what we're trying to do here. So after that little side note, let's talk about muscles first. Your muscle mass does start to decrease 3 to 8% per decade after the age of 30, and that rate goes up after the age of 60. All right, so it goes up. So we lose muscle mass. It just starts to decline at the age of 30, and it just more rapidly declines after that, especially after the age of 60. It's an involuntary loss of muscle mass and strength and function, and it is a main contributor to disability in older people. And I will tell you, as a PT, what we see so much is that loss of muscle mass will start to lead over time, slowly, to less movement, right? You start to just move less. Like your world starts to get a little smaller, and you've probably seen it in aging patient or aging parents even. Your world starts to get smaller, whereas you used to, drive farther and be willing to, walk the whole mall or even travel, right? You felt comfortable in an airport. You start to say, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not quite as safe. I don't feel safe in airports anymore. I think I'm going to travel less. Then you start leaving the house. And then you stop going up and down stairs. You start saying, you know what, I can't go to my grandkids' activities because it's on bleachers and I'm scared to go up and down bleachers. Like your whole world starts to get smaller, which then contributes, that's a direct contribution to dementia and pulling back from society, right? Pulling back from friends, pulling back from community, starts to lead to more dementia. Ultimately, all of that, the muscle mass then can lead to decreased balance and a fall. And I will tell you, in the elderly, a fall is what we dread almost the most, because so many times a fall is the beginning of the end of independence. That's what happened with my mother-in-law. She was living at home by herself, independently with her husband. She fell, broke her wrist. She never got out of a wheelchair again after that. She never did. She fell, broke her wrist. Dementia took hold. It was already there a little bit, exponentially increased. Wheelchair as she recovered from her wrist break, and she never gained back any independence after that. She lived in a memory care facility and was in a wheelchair for years after that. And a lot of it was because she didn't exercise and didn't build that strength needed to recover. So that is the importance of strength. Very, very important. And so if you're sitting there thinking, well, I know I'm losing muscle mass, but I don't really need to squat anymore. You do. We do. We squat every time we get on and off a toilet. Every time you get on and off a couch, you're squatting. Every time you go up and down stairs, you're doing a mini lunge. It all is about function. So we lose muscle mass, and sometimes it can happen quickly. Bones, right? We know that. We start to lose bone density, again, especially in women. So our bone density starts to decrease. We start to become more prone to osteoporosis. Tissue elasticity decreases. And that is the bounce back of your tissues. Why that's important is because tissue elasticity actually can have a lot of results around like prolapse, pelvic floor dysfunction. When we start to get looser in all of our tissues, it can start to lead to some of those issues. Our energy goes down. I think we can all say that. Energy decreases. when we're looking at certain times of life. And I just want to say this because it's a big one I hear from so many of you. We talk about it a lot, is that weight gain, especially around perimenopause. So many times as hormones change, you get some unexpected weight gain. And I know it becomes harder and harder to lose that weight. Balance. We start to have balance changes as we get older. Our reaction time decreases, and that's a really big one when it comes to falls. Again, let's say you step off a curb strange, right? And when you're younger, it's easier to kind of catch yourself. And as we get older, it's harder. I mean, I sense that. Like my hikes, especially on the edges of some rocks that I'm on and those kind of things, my whole sense of where I am in space, so that's balance, but it's also proprioception, that is going down. Like I don't feel as safe at the edge of these rocks as I did. Like I get a little more dizzy. I'm not quite sure where I am, and I definitely stay back farther because of that. And it's an adjustment. Resilience. So your resilience is kind of your ability to bounce back, your ability to take what life throws at you. I'm saying this, you could definitely have mental resilience, but we're talking physical resilience. So being able to bounce back from what life kind of throws at you on any given day. And then hormone changes. I mean, right? That's a big one. Hormone changes alone are part of what we experience as we age. And I do want to address that just so you really understand the effects of hormone changes. So what happens as our estrogen goes down? Estrogen deficiency actually contributes to muscle loss. So it contributes to our lack of muscle strength. It contributes to our lack of elasticity in our tissues. And it affects the structure and function of other musculoskeletal tissues around our muscles as well. So that's a big piece that I think sometimes just isn't addressed or taken into account, right? There's this whole idea that women are just smaller men. And that is throughout all of medicine and healthcare. I mean, it is just even in our current system and in our current time that women are even included in medical studies. It used to just be men were included in medical studies, and they just assumed those results also affected women. We are not just smaller men. This lack of estrogen, the hormones, the perimenopause, the menopause, what we go through is an entire issue in and of itself that men don't experience. And so the more we just acknowledge that, the more power we can take back on what's happening in our bodies. Okay, so that kind of encompasses just a few of the things that happen as we age. And I didn't even include things such as our change in eyesight and those kind of things. I wanted to really address the pieces that are going to affect exercise itself. But yes, there are other issues to take into account. And eyesight really can be a part of exercise as well, right? Let's say you were a cyclist, a competitive cyclist, and you start feeling like you can't see quite as well. You can't go around those curves the same. Like basically I'm saying all of the things that happen as we age, it's okay to take a moment and say, you know what? Maybe I can do all the things I used to do that brought me joy, and maybe I can't do all of them. And maybe I need to mourn that a little bit, or maybe I need to adjust, right? Maybe I'm not going to be competitive anymore in that, but maybe I can find a different way to love this activity. And that's okay to take a moment in that space. Like it's okay to mourn some of those things a little bit. The key is don't stay there. Don't let the fact that you look back a little bit and miss some of the things that you were able to do, don't let that stop you from still moving forward with what you can do. And that's something to take into account no matter our age. I mean, maybe you, and I've been there, you know, I've had many surgeries and many things come up that don't let me do what I used to be able to do. But there's nothing positive that comes out of staying in the place of wishing I could go back. Nothing positive. So all we can do is look forward. You either look forward and find new things you can do, or find the things that you still love and find a way to still be a part of that. But don't let yourself look back and just wish you could go back, because you can't. And it's okay. And you're allowed to mourn that for a little while, but don't stay there. Instead, we are going to look ahead to what we can do. We're going to look ahead with optimism, with hope, knowing that there are things we can do. We can take back our power and take back our control because there are things that we can do to help our bodies and to stay strong. And the number one thing I'm going to tell you that you need to do for exercise as you age, especially as a woman, is to lift weights. There is no way around it, okay? No way around it. It is the absolute truth, science-backed truth. You need to be lifting weights. Lifting weights is the best way to help prevent or slow down that muscle loss. And yes, you can actually gain muscle, okay? We are not just slowing down muscle loss. We are actually gaining muscle. You have to lift weights. You can do it at home. I am not telling you you have to go get a gym membership. I have so many home workouts with dumbbells on YouTube and in Unlimited. We have so many workouts available for you. You can be a beginner. You could be advanced. I have Prolapse safe workouts. We have so many. And you need to be lifting weights. Get some dumbbells at home if you don't have any. And hear me when I say this, you need some heavy ones. There is nothing wrong with starting with 3 pounds if you've had an injury or if you've never lifted anything before in your life. I am absolutely not here to shame that. You have to start somewhere and you need to build a baseline. But you absolutely cannot stay there. 3 pounds is not going to prevent the muscle loss that we need as we age. Okay, a typical grocery bag weighs 10 pounds. And I know you. I know you're carrying those groceries around and you're probably carrying multiple bags in your arm so you only have to make one trip. I know this. I know many of you are gardeners and you are out there in your yards gardening and pulling and carrying and doing all the things. Some of you are younger and you're moms with little ones and you're carrying car seats, which let me tell you are the heaviest, most awkward things in the world when they are filled with a squirming child. So you guys are carrying heavy things. So you need to be training to continue to be able to carry heavy things. You need to train and get stronger to be able to get on and off the floor. You need to train and get stronger to be able to get in and out of the shower, in and out of the tub, up and down stairs carrying laundry baskets. I am telling you this as absolute truth. I want you to be able to lift weights, and I want you doing it at least twice a week. Okay, that's the minimum. Minimum is 20 minutes twice a week of a focused workout lifting weights. And then if you can, you up that maybe to 25 or 30 minutes, and then maybe you add a third day. And I'm going to tell you what a complete program is going to look like here in a minute. But 2 days a week, minimum 20 minutes. All right? And again, if you are just starting out, maybe you have 3 to 5 pounds as your light weights and like 8 pounds as your heavy weights. And eventually you are getting to 10, no doubt. 10 pounds minimum is what I want you to be able to lift. Like maybe to do a squat, maybe to do an overhead shoulder press. That's minimum. And then you build up. If you've been lifting weights for a while, maybe 10 is your light and 15 is your heavy. I'm not saying you need to be an Olympic weightlifter. I mean, I've had prolapse repair surgery. I am never lifting more than 50 pounds. It's just not actually recommended. I just can't even try to lift more than 50 pounds. But I am doing shoulder presses as much as I can. Heavy, I am getting down and doing squats. I am doing chest press. I'm doing everything I can to keep those muscles strong. So you don't, like I said, you don't have to go to the gym and use the racks and the Olympic weightlifting. You can do it at home, but it needs to be heavy enough that you are fatigued. And I don't mean that it puts you down for 3 days. I mean that last rep is hard, that you are fighting for it. If you can do 20 repetitions while watching TV and you don't have to think about it, then it is too easy and it is not building muscle. All right? It needs to be challenging and you need to be fatigued after those last couple reps. So lifting weights, number one thing you need to be adding. The next thing that I really, really like to include for myself and anybody who's aging is, and I'm going to combine these, but I call it like my Pilates / mobility days. So where I am doing some standing hip mobility and balance work, I am getting down on the mat and doing some mobility and Pilates work. I'm making sure that I'm doing a little bit on my stomach, a little bit on my sides, a little bit maybe in a plank. So a combination of things. In Unlimited, this would be like our Pilates and mobility day. And I combine all of those moves. So at least one time a week, maybe two if you have the time. But adding 1 or 2 days where you are doing those kind of moves is really, really valuable. So what the weights do, when we lift weights, just physically what happens is our entire body braces, right? So think of a building. It's really strong. It needs to be strong so it doesn't fall over. That's our body too. We need to be strong so we don't fall over. So we brace when we lift weights, and that's an important way to train. But you also need the mobility piece. If you saw me in real life right now, I'm actually moving side to side like seaweed. That's how I always kind of explain it. You can't be just braced all the time, because if you're just braced and protected and standing there, if someone comes over, right, and like pushes you with a finger, you would just fall over. If you can picture that, right? Just picture like a statue. It's really, really strong. But if I were to just push it with a finger, it's just going to fall, tip over and crash. You need that resiliency, mobility piece too, so that like if you do get pushed, you can put one leg out to the side really fast and catch yourself and maybe twist at the same time so that you don't drop what you were holding. Like you can probably picture that in your head. And this is actually, I have a couple great examples. I have 2 Unlimited members who've reached out to our group in the past 2 weeks saying, this is exactly why I'm in Unlimited and why I've worked out consistently the past year. They both had experiences where they were out and about. One, I think, was in a school because she's a teacher, and one was at a mall, and slipped on something, right? So you slip on a wet patch on the ground or something happens and you slip, and you have to either catch yourself suddenly or, in this case, at least one of these members actually fell, but was able to do so in a way that ended up being really safe, nothing worse than a couple bruises. And both of them said, this was a really scary situation that could have been a lot worse, except I was prepared for it. That is absolutely what we're doing by training our bodies every week, every day, is we are preparing ourselves for the unknown. And that piece, that kind of resiliency piece, we're able to catch ourselves and respond to what's happening around us, that's the mobility and Pilates, actually, that I like to give to people, that I include as well. That's the piece that allows me to be safe doing my weights, even with prolapse repair surgery and hysterectomy and mastectomy. It's this piece that allows me to do all the other things that I want to do, that keeps me balanced on my trail runs. So adding that Pilates and mobility is really important. And either you do like a full day, or a lot of times for myself, I have a little 10-minute routine and I do it almost every day. I just tag it on almost every day. So however you're doing it works. It's okay either way. But you really want to make sure that you are including that piece in your routine. And then a third really important piece, something called plyometrics. And this is actually being talked about more when it comes to aging and aging women specifically. So if you know the word plyometric, and again, as a PT, I've heard it my whole life. And even I think, when I think plyometric training, I think jumping. I think like athletes. I mean, that's what we use plyometrics for, is athletes. Really high box jumps, one-legged jumps, throwing heavy medicine balls against a trampoline and catching them, the ropes, the battle ropes, like that's what I think of as plyometrics. But let me read the actual definition of plyometric for you, or one of the definitions. Plyometric exercises are explosive movements that combine speed and force to create powerful movements. But they don't have to include any kind of jumping whatsoever. So they're a type of exercise that can be really beneficial for aging women because they help improve muscle power. We haven't quite talked about that yet. So muscle power is an important piece of that resilience. It means that we can respond quickly to something. We can respond quickly with strength. And that can really help with our osteoporosis too, with our bone health. So it doesn't have to involve jumping. It can if you like those kind of things. And I can tell you, again, with someone who's had prolapse before, jumping isn't the best for me necessarily. But plyometrics are an important way to add that into your workouts. And in Unlimited, the way we do it is we have a high intensity interval training day or a cardio day. And a lot of times we have these non-impact high intensity interval training workouts that are plyometric workouts. So it's working on a little bit of that speed, a little bit of that power. It's working your muscles in a different way. Sometimes it's even using dumbbells, but it's working them in a different way. And if you don't have a concept of what that is, you can just go to my YouTube channel, and I'll have some links below to some of these. You can go to my YouTube channel and see some of my non-impact high-intensity interval training workouts. Or if you're on Unlimited, you can just go find those. You can filter them out. But that is a really, really, really important way to work, again, kind of that balance, that resilience, that muscle power. And don't feel like it has to be jumping or running or anything like that. It's just working the muscles in a slightly different way. And another really important benefit to that is brain health, because you're making your brain think in a different way. You're working on your response time and those kind of things. All of this is so important to our brain health. And then the final piece I want to add, and then I'm going to tell you how I put all this together. The final piece I want to add is walking. Walking. Walk, 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 walk. Walk. If there's nothing else you are doing, like if you really say, Jessica, I cannot lift weights yet. I can't do this. I just can't. If you are at that place, walk. Get outside right now and go for a walk. Walking has so many benefits. And I'll just say from, again, like a PT exercise standpoint, adding steps to what you're already doing. And I wouldn't take away the other things, okay? I don't want you to take away the other things. But adding steps, for me personally, has been the biggest difference on how I manage the perimenopause weight gain. It has been the biggest difference. My other workouts have basically stayed the same, except I've definitely gone heavier in weights now as I'm starting to recover from my mastectomy. I've gone heavier in weights, which I have really loved. But adding more steps every day, adding walking every single day, intentional walking, has been a game changer for me. And it's called, and if you are doing the other things we mentioned, then your walk doesn't have to be like a power walk. It doesn't have to be a fancy big walk. Just get those steps in. Like get outside and walk, walk, walk. I don't think 10,000 steps a day is a magic number necessarily. There's no science behind that. It's whatever works for you. I personally find if I can do a really intentional 30-minute walk every day, that's where the tipping point is, that makes a really big difference. And then I love to just add little ones. Like maybe I'll do a 10-minute walk later on with my daughter after dinner. Maybe I'll go for a walk with my husband during the day or with a friend. But walking, adding walking, don't ever discount the effects, the positive effects that walking can have. So how this looks when you put it all together. And again, everyone is going to be a little bit different. I really believe in looking at your life and finding a realistic way to fit this into your life. I'm going to tell you what I think kind of a minimum ideal would be. Like this would be an ideal plan where I feel like, okay, you don't have to do more. You can if you want to, but you wouldn't have to do more to see benefits. But this would be kind of the ideal plan that I think that I would recommend a client have. Would be at least, like I said, 2 days a week of the dumbbells, 25 minutes. Okay, 25 minutes, 2 days a week. That would be kind of that minimum place. Adding Pilates/mobility 1 or 2 days a week, either on their own, so again, like 25 to 30 minutes, or spreading it out and doing 10 minutes every day. I think either would be fine. I think either would be great. And then doing a plyometric 1 time a week, 20 to 25 minutes. And walking every day, like 15 minutes every day. That would be a minimum plan that I think would be a really great goal. If you're not doing anything right now, I would make that a goal. If you are doing some things, but you're like, oh, I haven't included that plyometric piece, like maybe you just tweak what you're doing and know that you can be doing more, right? You can be increasing that time that you're lifting weights, or maybe you add one more day of weights per week. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm a swimmer, I love to swim. Great, throw it in there. Throw in what you love. That's the key. You should still be doing what you love and throw it in wherever it works for you. But just make sure that you're hitting those pieces. And if you're really not sure, like where those workouts come from or where to start, come over to Unlimited. You have a couple options where I'm really focusing on workouts and how we make a plan, especially as we age. So first, if you're listening to this in real time, on YouTube in December 2024, I'm going to have each Monday, we're going to have a specific workout around this theme. So the first Monday, we're just going to talk about what I'm talking about right here, what exercise looks like for aging women. Okay, so it's just going to repeat this if you want to repeat. And then we're going to have 3 weeks in a row of 10-minute workouts with dumbbells. We're going to have an upper body, we're going to have a lower body, and then we're going to have like a plyometric HIIT workout. All right, so those are the 3 in December, so you can come over and check them out. But more importantly, in Unlimited in January, so 2025, January, our theme is strong. And our workouts are going to look just like this. And we have a monthly workout plan. You're going to get workouts every single day that follow this plan that I'm talking about. We have beginner options. We have advanced options. We're going to have dumbbells at least 2 times a week, possibly 3. We're going to have Pilates. We're going to have that plyometric HIIT cardio piece. We're going to have balance. We're going to have it all. Plus live sessions, a members only podcast, a great community group, a really supportive place. So those are 2 options if you want to see again how all this looks in real life and you want some guidance around it. So I'll have the links for all of that below. All right, so just check out the links below. You can also just come over to jessicavallantpilates.com and you can see Unlimited there as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, whether you've started an exercise program in the past, whether you've never started one before, it doesn't matter. Just start now. Start today. If you are good and you feel like you're consistent, just recommit to that. Remember, you are here to work for that strong, independent, powerful body because I know it is there. Like, I know it is. Absolutely. We just have to find a program that works for us. We need to find one that we feel empowered with and excited about. And I want to help you do that. I absolutely know you can. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today on Meet Your Body. If you have a moment, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast as it helps us tremendously. For more resources and workouts, you can visit my website, jessicavallantpilates.com, or find me on YouTube or Instagram at Jessica Vallant Pilates.